Hi, I'm Donna Wilder.
And I'm Janie Donaldson. Welcome to Quilt Central. Plan exquisite feathers in your quilting projects.
Sit down with us as we compose a floral bouquet. Visit a historical carriage house where two local artists will share their art.
Don't miss our tips for perfecting your hand quilting stitch. Stay with us.
Quilt Central is made possible in part by Janome America, makers of sewing machines and sergers. Janome, because you simply love to sew.
APQS offers the Millennium and a full line of hand-guided quilting machines made in America's heartland for America's artisans.
Sylvia Design Sewing Furniture, designed just for you. JT Trading Corporation, stick with us. Electric Quilt Company. Paducah-McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Welcome to Quilt Central, celebrating quilting in everyday living, with your hosts, Jane Donaldson and Donna Wilder.
Today I have a special guest with me, Judy Allen. She's a celebrity long arm teacher and she's a designer of patterns, and she specializes in feathered patterns. Hi, Judy.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
I know you have brought a lot of things to show us today, and your patterns are so unique and they have so much character to them. I'd like to know a little bit about how you got started.
Well, when I first got my quilt machine, I fell in love with feather designs, but I didn't want to hand quilt them because that was time consuming. So when I bought the quilt machine, I decided that I would do these by machine, but I discovered that all feathers were not alike, which I had thought they were. So then I started to design my own, and that's where I began creating these feathers to fit the space that I needed to.
Mm-hmm. And did you start with any particular kinds of quilts?
Well, I like to choose quilts that had open spaces, so that gave me an area to create flowing feathers that filled the space without having to do background quilting.
Okay, is there a special type that you started with? Or?
I like the Irish chain. It gave me small chains to deal with, but then it gave me open spaces to fill. And so I just started tracing the designs to put in that space with a stencil, but they didn't always fit the space, so then I wanted to create my own.
I have heard that you can make a feather fit any space.
I can. In these designs that are right here, we have a diamond shape, and I've taken just a straight line and gone down the middle and started on one side and just followed it up through, putting little feathers that filled the space on up, and then just reversed them as I got to the top and made them smaller.
I see your feathers go all the way out to the edge. Is there a reason for that?
There is, because I try to avoid background quilting like the plague.
Yeah, well, they go all the way out, so there's really no need to feather or meander in the background or do any other stitching.
Nope, it fills the space and it makes me happy.
Okay, let's see what else you got.
These designs are for borders of different sizes. I like to have them flow, as in this one here. I use quite a few different shapes of reverse feathers, such as a heart or a pointed or a curved shape.
So don't they call that a mustache shape?
Well, that looks quite similar to one. And then I use a lot of straight, especially in the narrow borders. I want to put feathers in because they're easy to quilt. I can do a center line, go down one side, quilt back up the other, and then I'm all done.
They're just beautiful. See what else you have.
These types of shapes, I made them narrow so that I could put them in sashing. You can take parts of these out if you feel that they're too detailed, or maybe you can add more on either side depending upon what shape you need to fill.
So you just keep building. Look at that.
This particular design, I actually saw this on a fella's belt buckle.
Oh.
And he had the flower was on it, and then the feathers were coming out from it. So I actually drew it on a little pad and took it home and made the design.
That has a lot of motion.
And these are triangle designs, and we can do lots of things with them. We can make them squares, or we can use them in inside corners of a quilt or outside corners. And we do lots of different star shapes. And so I try to make one that's very simple, that's continuous, start down at one end, quilt to the other, and then do the other side, and you're all done.
A real continuous line pattern then.
I like to do 4 corner designs. This one I took actually a square, folded it corner to corner, and then folded it again, and then actually took one center line and filled that space, and I knew that I had to leave enough so that I could quilt all the way around it, and then repeat it in the other 3 spaces. But in this type of design, you can take these 2 away, and then you have a very nice corner design that way.
Beautiful.
Or you can take and have the 2 hearts that are there.
Little different mirrored image.
Or you can take and position them so that there's one is going this way, whoops, and then one is going this way, and then you can make a border design like that.
Oh, wouldn't that be easy to use? And then you use 2 to go right around the corner.
Exactly.
And then if you need to shorten one side of the border, because most of our quilts are not square, they're rectangular, you can easily take a piece or 2 out and shorten your border
Actually,
up.
if we started in the center and worked to our corners, we can usually come up with something that's going to match there.
Pretty good balance.
This particular one, I like to put these 2 together, and they make a beautiful heart shape.
Oh. Now, if we wanted to put this onto a quilt, how do you get these transferred into the area that we want to put that design?
Take some sort of plastic transfer paper, and I put it over the space that I need, and then I have already transferred my design, but I would fill that space. I try to come into the corners of it, so again I avoid that background quilting. And I like to take this type of rose is a continuous line, but then if I can put feathers around it, then I can start in the middle and end up over here and never having to repeat the line.
Oh my.
And once I get my design made, then I take this yellow transfer paper, and then I can put my design on that. And I chose to mark the design with the blue water soluble marking pen just so that it doesn't transfer to the fabric. So then I sprayed it with spray adhesive and placed it where I needed to do it, and then quilt it. I just smooth the paper, and then I bring the machine over and start in the center. Bring up my bobbin thread. I like to make a couple stitches just so that I don't pull the thread away. Clip it off so that I don't
Get tangled back up in it.
Yes. So we're just quilting on this paper, just as if I was on the machine itself. And this is just a very gentle rose. I like to do a little bit of a turn back in there. And then I do my final outside petals.
Just beautiful.
And then I go into my feathers, and as I do that, I make them continuous, fill my space, and then just work my way right back around.
Seems to be a little skill needed because you have to back over your own stitching to keep feathered patterns continuous. Looks like you got that down.
With the variety of the size of the feathers, that gives me a little leeway in what I can quilt and how that looks around the rose itself.
That is beautiful.
Last row.
Wow.
A little back stitch, and then I'm done.
And it's just easy to pick that right off there. I have heard that you draw your feathers with a circle instead of a half a heart. And I see that you brought with you some circles to place at the top of each feather, and that you just draft them right like that.
Yep, I try to make my center line first, deciding where I want that to go. I like to, again, fill the space. I like to bring lines off of it so that it gives a variety and has as little background as I can. And then when I take that
to a garment back.
Yes, then I use it as a mirror image, and then that makes a beautiful design for the back of the...
Well, they are the most beautiful designs I've ever seen for garments. Thank you so much for showing all your designs to us, and I'm going to give it a try.
Well, thank you, Janie. I feel that feathers are the comfort of my soul.
I've known I was going to be an artist since I was just a little kid. My family's always been strongly suited to that field.
Nathan, Nicole, and Nina Brown are just one of the many new artists living their life's passion as part of the Artist Relocation program in the Lowertown section of Paducah, Kentucky.
I'm one of the only artists that has moved down here so far that's actually from Paducah, born and raised. The house that I bought was very special because it has such a nice living space, but also this carriage house. I was able to have my shop in the downstairs. This room is perfect for me and my family especially because here at Centered Studios we're not just an art studio for visual arts. My wife is a wonderful yoga teacher, and this room serves a dual purpose. We can do yoga in this room. Nicole teaches here. I also obviously have pieces on display.
It's becoming like a family. The neighborhood parties that we put on when new people are coming to town, it just really gives you a warm fuzzy, so to speak.
The Artist Relocation program gave me a great excuse, let's say, to start again.
Free motion quilting combined with Broderie Perse is really surfacing, and we would like you to take a look at some of the beautiful pieces we have. And joining us today is expert and award-winning Bonnie Saxby.
Thank you, Janie. I'm glad to be here. I'd like to show you how you can create a beautiful wall hanging or a quilt. I happen to like to do wall hangings. They're smaller and they take less time. And I love the results.
Well, I don't know much about Broderie Perse, so I would like to learn a little bit more about it.
Well, I love hand-dyed and hand-painted fabrics. And I love them so much that now I've started to paint my own fabrics.
This is one of your painted pieces, isn't it?
And nobody wants to cut them. Everybody hates to cut up painted pieces. So I decided they would make wonderful backgrounds. All I had to do was add figures. And if you like to do paper dolls when you were a little girl,
I did.
You'll really enjoy this. Plus, it's a good excuse for me to watch old movies on television.
So you can
because I watch television and I cut out different designs from pre-existing fabrics, and that's what Broderie Perse applique is.
Oh, how much fun is that?
Oh, and it's so much fun because you're designing something on your own, and it's a one-of-a-kind piece. And what I do is I put fusing on the back of the commercial fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And
on the backs of these pieces.
Right, before they're cut out.
Oh.
And they're in just any kind of fabric stores. I can go into regular quilt shops, or I can go into Home Dec. I've used upholstery fabric. I use drapery fabrics are wonderful because they have big flowers in them. But you just start with the fabric, put some fusing on the back, and then I do what I call fussy cutting, and I just sit and I cut them all out, and that's what I do when I watch television.
And you keep your little box so
and
you
I
can
keep
play.
my little box. And I have all kinds of things. I have birds and butterflies, any kind. I love butterflies, any kind of butterfly you want. And you put everything together, and then when you get a design put together that you like, then what you do is you just steam it down, And you already have your finished design. Now what you're going to do is you're going to embellish it with quilting.
Let's see how you do that.
Well, we sandwich the quilt. And
spray basted?
This is spray basted.
Okay.
And when I do my quilting, I have to wear my garden glove.
And you're also color coordinated.
And, yes, to match the background piece. And as you can see, we're sewing sunflowers here. And we're going to go, all I'm doing is following the outline of the sunflower with a little bit of trimming in the center, a little bit of accents in the center. But what it does is it brings out the colors in the sunflower and makes them look very real and gives them a dimensional look. Very simple. If you want your lines to be heavier, you just go around the flower more than once. And we're just moving right along. And you'll have one done in no time because with the raw edge, all you have to do is follow the line just inside that raw edge. You can go over it if you want. That's why it's so nice for beginners. You get such nice results. Another thing to remember is curved lines are always prettier than straight lines. And you can make mistakes on curved lines and they don't show up as much as they do when you are working with a straight line. So as you can see, I always work with a lot of curved lines and cover up any mistakes.
When you have, after you've quilted on the flower or the leaf or the butterfly, then what do you do in the background?
Well, it depends on what the background, if there's a lot of action going on in the background, maybe I'll follow the background design, or I can just get in and do some free motion. Now we're using some brown thread here, but I can just show you, I can go off in the background and I can put in some leaves. You can do a shadow leaf there, or you could do a little vine.
So this is just anybody's interpretation, and
Anything,
it just flows.
you just doodle.
And you just doodle.
Doodle and have a good time.
It is absolutely looks like a beginner could do that, and I think that it has a real advanced look to it.
Exactly. You get really, really good results without a lot of effort. Of course, practice always makes perfect, but the most fun is coming up with a different design.
So these are realistic, but yet they're fantasy.
Yes,
in the
you can
background.
either way.
And do you use a lot of different kinds of threads? Or do you use the same one?
I use a lot of rayon and the polyester, the glittery, metallic looking
Because you like the
threads.
shiny threads, because you're looking close, so you want to see all that
Yes.
little sparkle.
And a lot of times I'll use that in the background, and it will bring out then the design that you've come up with.
You have shown us a lot of things today. This is a lot of things to think about between the dyed fabric, the appliques, and all the free motion embroidery. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Last week we learned about how to get set to start hand quilting, and this week our expert is going to show us how to actually hand quilt. Joining me is Cindy Walter, who is a quilter extraordinaire. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. Hi, Donna. I've been looking forward to this.
I know this is your favorite thing, doing the hand quilting.
Yes, I've taught more hand quilters, people how to hand quilt than anything else, and so it's my favorite thing to teach, and I'm just addicted to it.
Well, let's get started and
Okay.
tell us a little bit about what you use.
Okay, well, I'm already hooped up, and we saw me do this last episode, and I need a couple other things. I have a concave thimble with a concave top. This is, most thimbles are rounded tops, and that's a sewing thimble or a tailor's thimble. So this is a quilter's thimble, and it has to fit all the way down on my longest finger to where it actually smashes it down. It fits all the way on. If it's not tight all the way on, you don't have very much control. The next thing I need is a quilter's thread, and you can tell that it's quilting thread because it's coated, and that way I don't have to use beeswax.
Okay.
I haven't used beeswax in like 15 years because now we have these beautiful coated threads.
And you need that for this durability and the strength of it.
Yes, and it also prevents knotting.
Oh, good.
And since we're going in and out of so many layers, the thread can fray easily or not, and it prevents all of that. And it makes it easier to thread. One last thing we need is a quilter's between needle, and this is a size 10, and contrary to belief, the larger the needle, the harder it is to make good stitches. So you really want to start with a small needle, which would be a size 10.
And why do they call them betweens?
Because they go between needles. They're a short needle to go between layers. A long needle would snap in half or bend. So you want a short needle that goes between layers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a short, sharp needle going between all the layers. And let me just show you a tip on how to thread your needle. I pulled my thread straight off the spool and not wind it off an end. And my great aunt taught me this years ago. I simply just hide the tip of the thread down between my fingers and set the eye of the needle right on it. And there it is.
You are so brave to do that on television. First time.
Every time. It's so
Wow.
It's a great little tip. So remember that. And I'll give you another tip. If you have poor eyesight, thread, or you have your kids thread it or whatever, but thread the whole spool early in the morning and keep them all down here and just ease off the one you need at the time. And you can keep easing needles off. Clip it down there, and we're going to actually knot it where we clipped it.
Okay.
So our knot's going to be there. And I'm going to use a white thread. So let me grab a pre-threaded needle. And here's a real fun quilter's knot. Simply just put the tail on top of the, underneath the needle, put it underneath and wrap twice and hold and grip the whole knot and pull it on out. And there I have a perfectly sized knot with a short tail instead of big long tail.
Good.
Now here's the fun part. I'm going to show you the hand quilting stitch. I want to start right here. And most people quilt towards their chest or the left armpit. So I'm going to quilt towards me, and I'm going to start there. So to start there, I have to go in a little ways away and catch the batting. Very important, because I'm going to sink the knot in the batting. So I go a little ways away, tug, a slight little tug, and there we have it.
Pops it in.
Pops it in, and it's in the batting and it's stuck. The first stitch is kind of hard for some folks. I'm going to have it perpendicular, lay the needle back, and there's the needle. The second you see the needle, stop pushing, lift it up. I can feel it, so I stop pushing,
And this
lay
is
it
a
down.
rocking sort of stitch.
And what most people do is they push too hard and too much. So I just push until I can see it, and then stop pushing, and you have to have control without pushing. Now let me tell you what all my other fingers are doing here. Let me pull this out and start one more. And I'm going to start perpendicular right there. My underneath finger is sitting, the needle was sitting in it, and my thumb is pushing the fabric down in front so that the needle can come up. If my thumb is not there, how does the needle come up? It couldn't come up. So my thumb has to push the fabric down in front. And underneath, I'm quilting right into the tip of my pad of my finger. I don't wear anything underneath because you have to feel it, and I trade off my fingers if one finger gets sore. So I just trade off, and I'll just take a couple more stitches here. So it's lift it up, lay it down, lift it up, lay it down, and it's just that easy. And there's all your stitches. And let's say if I want to travel and get over to that side, you can go on in, travel on over, spin your needle around without taking it back out, and come out wherever you want to come out. You can move around. And let me show you how to make one of the easiest knots. Just grab your thread, wrap down at the base. Of course, I wouldn't knot over here where I am, but I just want to show you that. Hold the knot so that you have a tight little knot there. Go right back in and tweak it, snap it in, and you've sunk your knot. So that's how you end up.
How clever. Now, how many stitches to the inch? They always talk about that.
And it doesn't matter. And I've, from one of my books, I had to make 12 stitches an inch, and it was fine. But I always say, just make them consistent. Practice on making them straight. To make them straight, you have to lift your needle straight up and down. Make them straight, make them consistent. And that's
now,
what's
you
important.
like this hoop. There is the longer hoop that you could use.
That's a floor frame, and I love the floor frame because you can put your quilt on it tautly and it's perfect, but most people don't have room. So this is my option because it's a hoop on a stand, and it's a great option.
Well, you are a great quilter, and thank you for sharing your tips.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you.
I love that patriotic piece Cindy was quilting on.
Everybody's thinking red, white, and blue again.
Yes.
Thank you for watching Quilt Central today. Be sure to join us again next time, where we'll learn some of the stories behind the long arm quilting experts' favorite quilts.
And then let your imagination run wild. Add buttons. We have a project that will get you started.
Plus, we'll take a ride to a country bed and breakfast.
See you then.
Quilt around the clock. Visit the Quilt Central website at www.quiltcentraltv.com for more information on this program. Quilt Central is made possible in part by Janome America, makers of sewing machines and sergers. Janome, because you simply love to sew.
APQS offers the Millennium and a full line of hand-guided quilting machines made in America's heartland for America's artisans.
Sylvia Design Sewing Furniture, designed just for you. JT Trading Corporation, stick with us. Electric Quilt Company. Paducah-McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Additional funding was provided by these companies that care about quilting. Celebrate quilting in your everyday living. To purchase videotapes of this or any episode of Quilt Central, you may call toll-free at 1-866-PADUCAH.
Hi, I'm Donna Wilder.
And I'm Janie Donaldson. Join us for Quilt Central, where we celebrate quilting and everyday living.
Feathers are a great way to add an elegant touch to your quilting projects. And we'll sit down and we'll compose a floral bouquet.
We'll visit a carriage house where two local artists will share their art. There's sure to be something to pique your interest on the next episode of Quilt Central.
Hi, I'm Donna Wilder.
And I'm Janie Donaldson. Join us for Quilt Central, where we celebrate quilting and everyday living.
Feathers are a great way to add an elegant touch to any quilt.
And don't miss our tips for perfecting your hand quilting stitch. Make sure you tune in for the next episode of Quilt Central.